It's amazing how the paint blended in the trees, turned one side of the tree into a shadowed side and one side into a more sunlit side. And I just love this painting. It's so easy to do and so pretty. You need to try it. Hi friends, I had a request to do birch trees in the winter. We're going to use pink, blue, white, and yellow, and tape and black paint. That will be our only other thing. We'll need a brush and a palette knife. So I'm going to put tape up and down, marking where my trees are going to be, and then I will be right back. I'm making 3 trees, and they're all a little different widths. I'm doing one bigger one, a small thin one, a medium-sized one, and putting down the tape to keep part of my canvas white as I paint in the sky. Okay, that's ready. So I hope you can see I have 3 trees that I will be painting. We have had so much snow overnight. It's so bright outside that I don't know if the iPad is coping with it. But anyways, we're going to try to do this. Here comes a little bit of pink and white mixed together. Pink and white, up and down. And a little bit of, I'm blending this right on the canvas. More pink and white, up and down. A little bit of blue and pink and white together. Blue, pink, and white will make you have a little bit of mauve shades. A little bit more white, up and down. Blending right on the canvas, making really pretty shades of mauves in the sky, violet sky. Vertical strokes with the brush so that it looks like snow falling in the winter. A little bit more white. Straight up and down. It's okay to go right over your tape. Don't worry about that. Straight up and down. A little bit more paint. Don't be afraid to use plenty of paint and plenty of white. We want this to be lovely pastel shades. As I get to the side, I let it get a little darker, a little bit more blue involved in the paint, but I'm still using pink and white with the blue. I'm just letting it get a little bit darker as I go to each side. My homemade easel is very wiggly. I apologize for that. Can't be helped just yet. Maybe I'll get a better one in the summer. I made it myself out of an old sign. Okay, I'm going to finish up my canvas, doing the vertical strokes, letting it get darker towards the sides, and I'll be right back in a minute. Can you see how pretty and streaky the paint is? When I was putting the strokes on, I tried to go from one end right to the other without stopping. Now comes the exciting part. I'm going to peel off the tape and reveal the tree shapes left behind. This is magic. So you can see my 3 trees left behind. I'm going to pause now. I just want to remind you guys that I'm using crafting supplies from the dollar store. Nothing fancy going on here. Next, I take a little tiny bit of yellow and a lot of white and mix it together to make a very pale yellow. And I will put that down the right-hand side of my trees, the right-hand side, all the way from the top down to the bottom. Very, very pale. I'm going to do that on the right-hand side of every birch tree. All the way from the top to the bottom. It helps them to stand out a little bit from the blue and pink of the sky, the mauve sky. All the way from top to bottom. Then I'll take a very tiny bit of blue and a lot of white. A very tiny bit of blue and a lot of white. And down the other side of the tree, I will paint blue. Now where they meet in the middle, it's going to turn into a little bit of a green shade. That's okay. We want the tree to stay lighter than the sky, so remember to keep it very light. And blending on the canvas, it ends up a little bit of a aqua shade almost, which is perfect. Doing that on the other trees, all the way from the top down to the bottom. Keeping it lighter. And slightly different shade than the sky. So as the blue and the yellow blend together with the white, they make a little bit of an aqua shade almost. Oh, that got pretty yellow. It's all right, we'll just keep going. More white, up and down. So you can see that one side of my trees is yellower and one side of my trees is a little bit bluer. Just go up and down this one more time. Please let me apologize. I have a cold and I know that makes me sniff sometimes and I'm not happy about that, but it's just how I am right now. I hope you're safe at home, just like me. Okay, so I've got those done. Time to dry your work really well with your hair dryer. I have a spot of black paint. Remember, if you don't have black, you can make a really nice dark gray by mixing brown and blue together. And I have a plastic palette knife that I got at the dollar store. I have a clean palette as otherwise. I changed my saran wrap. And you notice my palette is just a plate from the kitchen. I can unpeel that saran wrap and throw that away without having to do a lot of washing and cleanup. So see, I've dipped my edge of my brush, not my brush, but my palette knife, excuse me. I lay it on the side of the tree and I drag it across. This is going to make beautiful birch trees or aspen trees. We have so many of those here where I live. You want to have your marks look rather random. You can put some in the middle, across like this, and pull it up and down. It's where the tree is peeling a little bit, and they get a little darker closer to the bottom. So a little bit more peeling at the bottom. The bottom of your tree needs to be a little wider than the top of your tree. That's important. So I'm going to continue scratching in these gentle little marks. And see how I have a spot here that sort of blooped over the side? I'm not worried about that at all. I will just turn that into a branch later. Sometimes I just go up the left-hand side of the tree a bit. All the way to the top. Okay, I'm going to finish my other tree and we'll come back in just a minute. I'm almost finished here, but I wanted to mention that I tap in the paint and I hold the knife in a vertical position. So just the edge of the knife drags the paint across. I'm going to get a really fine brush. It's important for the next part that you don't let your paint get too thick. I have a fine brush with long hairs in it. I take my paint and I roll the end of the brush, the bristles. Well, they're not bristles, they're hairs. I roll the hairs in and I'm going to, from one of my black marks out all the way to the edge of my canvas, all the way. Most of the branches will be closer to the top of the tree. So I'm going from one of my black marks and dragging out a branch. And the branches have a lot of little twigs growing off of them. So let yourself wiggle out some of those. They need to be as wiggly as you can make them, because really that's how they look in reality. So some of my branches are going right off the edge and being a little thicker, and then I'll drag some thinner wiggly branches off of those. There I go, sniffing again. Sniff, sniff, sniff. The branch is a little thicker where it joins to the tree. Almost like it has a bit of an elbow. And just the same way that your tree gets thicker at the bottom compared to the top, your branch is thicker as it gets closer to the tree and thinner as it gets away from the tree. So we need to do a lot of little branches from about halfway up towards the top. Just tickle those in. When your paint gets too thick, make sure you dip your brush in your water. Dip your brush in your water, make the paint a little bit thinner, and you will find that it will come onto your canvas much more fluidly. When the paint gets too thick and it's like pudding, it's very hard to paint fine lines with it. Also, if your brush gets too dirty and too full of paint, it's really tough to make fine lines with a brush full of paint. So clean your brush often. A little thicker, closer to the tree. All right, I'm going to put in a bunch of branches and then I'll come back. It's amazing how the paint blended in the trees, turned one side of the tree into a shadowed side and one side into a more sunlit side. And I just love this painting. It's so easy to do and so pretty. You need to try it.